Thank you all for coming to this live webinar session. Our first is SkillCat. For those of you who don't know about SkillCat or I haven't met before, I'm Ruchir. I'm the founder and CEO of SkillCat, and we're really building a platform to help bring more people into the skilled trades. So there's tons of folks who are underemployed, unemployed, all over the country. And through our platform, we're training them up for free and then working with a ton of companies in HVAC and other skilled trades to place them into great jobs. And we have almost 10,000 folks coming through our site every month. 30% are women. And whenever we talk to any of the companies we work with in HVAC, they have very, very few, if not any women working for them. So really excited to have our guest here today, Jennifer. And as we get started, feel free to ask any questions you have in the YouTube live chat. Yeah, we'll get started. So I want to introduce Jennifer, and then I'll let her introduce herself. So from what I know, she spent most of her life involved around the trades in some way, and just recently got an incredible job as an HVAC technician, and studying to possibly even become an HVAC engineer. So we're really excited to have you on board, Jennifer.
Thanks. Really excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to get started, would love to tell me a little bit more about yourself and your story.
Sure. So I'm 32 and I am a mom of five. Two of those are my foster kids I've had for 7 years. So we've got a big family. I'm from a really small town in Maine. One of those places where recessions hit hard and jobs are not always easy to find, obviously. I went to SkillCat to get my HVAC licenses and ended up staying for the other courses, which teach you a lot more about the job itself and are really important. So yeah, that's it. I'm an HVAC tech for Maine.
That's awesome. Maine's beautiful.
It is.
So tell me a little bit more about your time growing up. So were you exposed to the trades as a child, and did you ever consider that as a potential career?
I absolutely was exposed to the trades, not HVAC or, carpentry or any of those, little less foundational. But my stepfather was a lobsterman, a Maine lobsterman. So that's a pretty widespread trade here, as you can imagine. And I loved being on the boat, loved doing the hard work. It's always been something that was important to me. And he was also an exterior painter. So I got a lot of experience in that as a kid as well. And I think always from day one, I never wanted to sit behind a desk. I always wanted to work with my hands, and I've always loved machines. So, yeah.
That's very cool. And so I guess tell me about maybe your experience in high school. One of the things at SkillCat we're really trying to do is motivate more folks to come into the trades where you can make a ton of money versus going to college where you have a lot of debt and it's a less certain future for a lot of folks. How did that experience play out for you?
I was one of the lucky ones. I had a vocational school within my high school, and I was able to get my Tech 4 licenses right out of high school from that program for early childhood education. It is not something that I ever thought I would choose, but it ended up being something I did my whole life and also can be considered a trade. Mm-hmm. That vocational school offered every trade that you could possibly imagine. And a lot of kids from that school ended up going into the trades after, and they had, great money right out of high school. They never had to worry about income. But then I also watched a lot of others go to college and who are mostly still in debt to this day, which is why it's really important to me to get people out there and working rather than, if college isn't for you, it's not for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So you were a teacher?
Yes. I am a homeschool teacher now, currently. Mm-hmm. I pulled most of my kids during the pandemic and gave it a shot on my own. And I now have a homeschool pod doing homeschool nights for this year. We'll see how that works out. Mm-hmm. But I also was an early education teacher for 11 years. I owned a daycare before this.
Oh, that's really cool. So So how did you think about, so that sounds like a really fascinating experience as a teacher. What introduced you to HVAC and some of the skill trades?
HVAC has always been near and dear to my heart. My husband, we got together when I was 18, so I was still very, very young, and he was already very established in HVAC. He got into it right out of high school. And for the last 14 years, we've owned a company for HVAC, and I've always helped out and, that kind of stuff. But it wasn't really until SkillCat that I ever pictured myself being in the trade. I mean, I was honestly looking for homeschool vocational online work for my high school kids
Mhm.
and wanted to try it out to make sure that it was something cool that they could do, and ended up staying forever.
Yeah, that's really cool. Very inspiring to a lot of our students. So when you were, I guess, over the last 12 years, when your husband was and you guys were working together on this HVAC business, was becoming a technician yourself ever something you thought about?
Never in a million years. I know, and I have known what a stressful job it can be, but I also had wished that I could. Here, small town Maine is not the place that normally you get that encouragement that a woman can break into this trade easily. So that coming out of the gate. But I've never been the average person either. So it wasn't till SkillCat that I really gave myself a shot.
Tell me more about that. So you mentioned sometimes it's a little bit discouraging as a woman to get into the trades. How did that
Absolutely.
manifest itself? And do you have any stories or examples?
Um, yes, I do. So there have been countless times that I was notably unwelcome. But recently it's gotten better. There have been a lot of instances and a lot of job offers that were for significantly less money than my male counterparts would be in. I actually, when I first started SkillCat, the company that my husband works for 9 to 5, wanted to hire me. They were super excited until I did it. And now that I am a tech, they didn't really know what to do with me. So I ended up working there for a little while for way less money than I ever should have accepted, and realizing that it was not an okay situation, full of misogyny, and
Mhm.
left, and have just kind of been keeping my options open as far as where to work full time. I'm still working for our company. But I did just have a killer interview last week with Lennox International and was offered a substantial amount of pay. So they are out there. There are plenty of companies that would love to have women aboard and really want to get women in the trades. It's a matter of not settling for your first offer. So I
Mhm.
really want to stress that.
Yeah, tell me, I think that's a really inspiring message for a lot of women out there. Tell me a little bit more about, I guess, the work company you worked at, I guess right out of SkillCat or over the past couple months. What were some of the challenges you faced as a woman? And so you said they had no issues bringing you on board and hiring you, but then it became more challenging
They
after.
they did. It was actually more of a situation where I think that they didn't think I was going to go through with it. So to save face in a cancel culture world, they were really interested in making me believe that they were ready. They have never
Mhm.
had a woman on board. Most companies here haven't. In fact, I don't know if any have. All the ones that I've talked to never have. And that's Lennox included,
Yeah.
in the tech position anyway.
Mhm.
So I think that when it came to, the guy that's telling me, let's get you on board, I can't wait to have you, speaking to his superiors, it was more of a, well, we need to wait on that and we need to figure this out more first. And I was told that there were conversations that needed to be had, because it's not like hiring a normal tech.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's just to shed a little bit of light on the language and the narrative. But then once I started, it became more and more apparent that the other people working there had
Mhm.
an issue. When you go to a place like SkillCat, and even my husband says this every single day, that it is so much more in depth than regular trade school would be, because it's all focused on the EPA. I've taken every course that SkillCat has to offer. And so there are things that I know how to do the easy way that my male counterparts older in the trades may not have. And instead of
Mhm.
being willing to learn, many of them were facing it more as a threat, I think. So basically all around, it was an issue that I was a woman.
Interesting. That sounds really tough. Were there, I know from what I've heard from, friends and colleagues in like offices, like, marketing jobs and tech jobs, often a lot of this, in some ways sexism can show up subtly and, doesn't happen necessarily in your face, but shows up around you. Was that the case? And I guess are these specific examples of like things that you've seen?
Yeah, it was the case. And I honestly don't believe that any of them were malicious or intentional.
Mhm.
We live in a society that just has these words and these phrases and this way of speaking about women that is different from the way we speak about men. And I feel like they really just honestly didn't know any better.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess a specific example would be a company just actually asked to get my husband and I as a team, which we
Mhm.
were very excited about until he was offered $35 an hour and I was offered 18 with more credentials. So yes, he definitely has the experience and is definitely worth $35 an hour, but where I'm being offered 32 at another company to take 18 would be insane. So I
Yeah.
guess that's one of those subtle, like, I don't think it was maliciously done. I think it was based on what they honestly thought I could do. So
Mhm.
that's one of those. And then also just like I've had men ask who I was going to ride with. Who are you going to ride with? Are you going to make sure that you're safe? Just things like that.
Yeah.
Like that no man would have to worry about.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds really rough. Uh, and hmm. So are there any tactical ideas you might have for women who might be on listening right now who are in similar environments to that company that you were working for, of
Absolutely.
how to handle
Yeah.
it?
So you don't have to just take it. I mean, and the point of me sharing that story is not that that's how it is in the fields or the industry. It's that you will face it. Eventually, somewhere, you're going to find that. And I think for me, I could have stayed there. I could have made the menial paycheck. I could have learned the work that I wanted to learn so badly. I could have been at a company that I've been loyal to for 14 years, and that part of it would have been great. But I would have struggled daily,
Mm-hmm.
emotionally, and with my self worth. So I think just not thinking that just because it's a societal flaw that you have to be a part of it. You can leave, you can wait. If you A lot of people aren't in the financial situation that I'm in either, where I had that ability to back off and say, I'm going to wait for something that values me. If that's the case, I would suggest finding, even if you have to take an apprenticeship or something that is lower paid, take it
Mm-hmm.
where you're valued, take it where you have a chance at advancement. That was another thing I was not offered, was a chance at advancement. When you're already a service tech at that place, unless you get a degree of some kind, you're not moving up. So
Mm-hmm.
definitely make sure that you're at a place where you are able to advance based on your skill and your work. But also, as far as just the little menial things, speak up is my biggest. I cannot tell you how many men actually that did, unwittingly say things that were offensive or were just not okay in some way, but they didn't
Mm-hmm.
know they were doing that. And no woman has ever told them they're doing that. Every
Mm-hmm.
woman just walks away and says, I don't want to be around this guy. I'm not gonna, but it's a teaching experiment, really. It's a social justice platform just to be with one other person.
Mm-hmm.
Let them know that what they're doing isn't okay. And if they choose to continue that, then you know where you stand, and then you need to act on that. But that is my biggest advice, is to act on it. Always act. Don't sit silent. Don't take it. Don't think you deserve it. Don't let it affect your self-worth is the major key talking point there.
Mm-hmm. No, that's really valuable advice. And we have a couple of questions in the chat that I think are relevant to what we're talking about right now. Erica. Yeah. So a question from Erica is, well, the first question was, I guess when you were in that role and you felt like sometimes they didn't know what to do with you, um, why did you feel like they didn't know what to do? I think you kind of answered that, but was this new for them, or yeah?
I can elaborate. Yeah, it was. Hi, Erica. First of all, thanks for your question. It was very new for them. And as I said before, it's not always something that is based on their character or who they are. Sometimes it's just based on how the world views women in trades. They just don't know anything about it. And if you look historically, everything that people in positions of power didn't know about always was handled negatively, whether by accident or on purpose. It still happens. So I guess they just didn't really know how to be PC about me. They didn't know who I should ride with. They didn't know who I should work with. They didn't know, who may be, they have never had a woman around these men either. So I guess they didn't know who was a threat to me, if anyone. But I think also it devalues the ability of a man to be in a copacetic relationship or working relationship with a female as well. So it's just a negative environment that it creates.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess another question from Carla is, what does hiring have to do with cancel culture? I think you mentioned earlier, cancel culture may have played a role in some ways. Yep. I think, if you want to elaborate a little bit on that.
Absolutely. Thanks. Was it Carla?
Carla, yes.
Thanks, Carla. Yeah. So how do I put this by being PC?
Yeah.
So we live in a world where very much a tiny spark can ignite the end of a company. It can ignite the end of a person. It can ignite a worldwide hatred for an individual or a company. If they hadn't handled it correctly, I think that they were worried that they could create that spark, that they would be that flint that creates that issue. And this is a company that's been around for a very long time with a very incredible reputation. And I'm sure that they didn't want any of that. I think that not hiring me would have been a threat to them in their eyes, no matter what kind of woman you are. It has nothing to do with who I was. They didn't know that at the time. But that was a threat. But also hiring me unleashed potential threats every day. So I think it was just a hard situation for them to be in. I don't think it was done maliciously in any way. Mm-hmm. I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then another question from Erica is, and Erica is actually, maybe when we have her on a future session, she's leading partnerships with women in HVAC.
Awesome.
So yeah, I know she was really excited to meet you as well.
So one of her questions, I've been looking at videos from their pages and I'm super interested in that group. That's wonderful.
What is the best way you have found to call someone out? In some of these
always with kindness. With HVA chicks, I always end every blog with "Be kind, HVA chicks." That's what sets us apart. You can be upset, you can be mad, you can be boiling, and I have been, I promise. But I think that the most important thing is to approach it with kindness, see it as miseducation rather than a malignant issue someone has with you. Remember what is personal and what is not. And remember that most negative things that happen come out of fear, and that is historical. That's with everything and everyone. We react one way or another when we are afraid of something. And a lot of men right now are afraid of women in the trade. So I would say the best way to call someone out is to understand that they're a human being, just like you are. Understand that they're afraid, just like you are. And try to approach it with politeness. If someone is being crassly impolite to you, that is an obvious no-go. And I'm not saying it will work in every situation. In those situations, protect yourself. Absolutely. First and foremost, protect yourself. And if you feel that you can't speak to that person, if you feel like it's a threatening situation or a dangerous situation, you have higher ups that you can go to that have to do something about it. So if you don't feel comfortable, my point is not ever to get somebody into an altercation at work. If you don't feel like you can approach the subject without causing an altercation, obviously just, go to someone else that you feel you can trust and that will take care of the situation. But always, if you're going to call someone out, remember that they're a human being. Remember that they learned it. They may have been there longer than you. They may have been in the trade longer than you. Just give them the kindness that you think that you deserve from them.
That's awesome. Very cool. I wanted to go through maybe a series of questions on, for folks listening in, and we get a lot of, 30% of the folks on our platform are women. And so we get a lot of folks who have heard about, HVAC, have heard about the trades, have never necessarily felt like it was for them in the past, but have always loved working with their hands and love troubleshooting. And for someone like that who's listening in on this channel, what recommendations would you give for someone like that to break in? Like how would you start? I know you had some exposure through your husband. What avenues or support channels would you suggest that they start reaching out to?
Well, the good thing about 2021 is we live in a technical world, and that is your best friend, although it can sometimes cause problems, of course. We have YouTube. YouTube is a wonderful platform for resources. I cannot tell you how many times I've literally been looking at a system, not knowing what to do, and I've gone on YouTube just to figure it out. And I'm not the only one. I'm talking guys who have been in the trade for 45 years are using YouTube. I'm not sure if it's okay, but I know you guys use them. So I'm going to go ahead and plug Hvac School right now. They are a wonderful app, wonderful group of guys. They know all there is to know. And if they don't know, they'll find it. They will figure it out. There are tons of apps. Don Foss apps are great too, to help you feel like you are comfortable in your trade. It's never down to what do you already know. This is a constantly growing, constantly learning trade where you will never, ever know everything there is to know if you're there a million years. So utilize that technical support that's there. Also, going back on SkillCat in the courses, if you have not taken a course yet that is not the EPA, I would fully recommend that you do that. There is so much great information that not only teaches you about things or how to troubleshoot or how to fix it, but how to do it the easiest way. So I would suggest definitely keeping your SkillCat login open and ready on your phone so that you can get right in there and say, oh, I remember hearing something about this TXV issue. I'm going to go back and look. That is absolutely your best friend. But also, as far as the other aspect of it that isn't the work, believe in yourself. Confidence is key. If you are walking into a job for an interview and you're not sure, they're not going to be sure. So make sure this is what you want to do. Make sure that you are ready to learn, but don't think that you have to know everything already. I guess that's the best advice I can use.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Very tangible. I think there's so many resources online to learn more. Yeah. How about in terms of networking, or if a woman doesn't know anyone in the industry, are there any recommendations on how to network into the industry or gain connections that way?
Yes. This was a tough one. This was a tough one for me. Coming from Maine, especially, I know that there are female HVAC techs out there. We just don't have any. I honestly haven't found evidence of another service tech that's a female in the whole state. So I looked for someone to network with and wasn't able to find that. However, there is in every state, in every town, in every county, there is a abundance of men who are knowledgeable and who have connections and who know where you should work and where you should not, being a woman. And men tend to be much more candid as well. I think I have gotten the greatest advice as far as where to apply, who to talk to, from other men that work at these companies. And I think that you'll find, although there is, plenty of misogyny and there are plenty of men that don't want to help you out, there are more that do. So definitely, if you have any friends that are in the trades that could maybe introduce you to an HVAC guy. The other thing is, as you know, the residential trade specifically, they all work together. You've got your carpenters, you've got your drywall guys, you've got your HVAC techs, you've got, your plumbers. They know each other. Maybe I would suggest getting a hold of someone that you may know or that a friend may know or a family member may know that might just be able to lead you on the right path, at least as to where to apply. But I think that as a woman, you also have to be super confident in yourself because that's what it's going to boil down to in that interview.
That makes a lot of sense. I think we're looking at fostering more of a community and opportunities to mentor folks. So stay tuned with SkillCat as well.
Yes, and I will always be available for any woman that needs advice. Always. You can get a hold of me through Rashir.
Yeah, no, we'll share contact information after this as well.
Great.
Very cool. Let me see if there are any other questions, and then I can move on. Let's see. I guess a question from Openda, just what are some of the things that keep you strong and going in the HVAC industry?
Hi, Openda. Thanks for your question. That's a really good question. I have 3 daughters, and I think they are definitely a huge part of it. I had my first daughter at 16, and have always kind of, because of that, had this extra drive to prove that I was just as much a role model as anyone else. And working with kids my whole life, I think was definitely a great experience for them, but I would love to see them do something different. So to prove that I can do something different is a huge thing that keeps me going and keeps me strong. I also have the personality of someone that would never quit because of the hard stuff. I very much enjoy a challenge, and I very much enjoy the look on people's faces when they thought I couldn't do something, realizing that I could. And that may not be the greatest advice ever, but it's who I am. So that's one of the big things. But also knowing that if you think about the suffrage, if you think about everything that anybody has ever done in America, it started with a few people. And to be one of those few people that is not the type that is willing to let that go to my head, but the type to help other people to follow along. And my goal is to see in 10 years, see the trades flooded with women, to see men and women working together and being able to coexist and get jobs done. I think that women and men both think very differently, and to have both of those sets of brains on a project is the most phenomenal partnership ever. So I would love to see that. So I guess just not wanting to fall off and have the people after me not want to bring other people with them is a fear that I have. So that's another thing that keeps me entwined.
Yeah, that's awesome. I hope this is going to be for any women listening, and this is very inspiring. So,
thanks.
So I guess another question I had, and one thing I've heard some pushback from is from folks is, I guess, what are some of what are some of the common pushback you've seen to, why a woman shouldn't work in the trades or shouldn't be able to work or can't work in the trades? And are there any ways that you've been able to address those, or you think women can address those?
I actually have a really good story that will give you some insight on that. I was working on a job, and it was a compressor change in a commercial system. And I was looked at from the step stool and asked, "Are you going to be able to carry that compressor?" I then picked up the compressor and climbed up a ladder with it and climbed into the system to put it in because I was too short to reach my arms in there. However, that is one of the biggest things. Am I strong enough? Am I strong enough? I've gotten, if you're too hot, you can sit in the truck. Are you going to be able to handle winter, honey? I've gotten, can you even walk that extension ladder back to that building? A lot of it is based on my size, I'm sure, but also the fact that women just aren't seen as having a ton of great muscles. You do have to stay in shape to be an HVAC worker, no matter what your gender is. You have to stay in shape. It's a lot of heavy stuff. It's a lot of moving around. And that's what I like the most about it. It's a very physical job. And when you leave every day, you feel like you have done something that absolutely changed the world. So I would say definitely, am I strong enough has been a huge bit of pushback. Also, I am a very banterful person. I enjoy banter, and that's how I show my love, which you can imagine most tradesmen are the same way. So I've had people that I've known for years now afraid to mess with me, which I really didn't appreciate. I'm still the same person. I'm not a different human because now I'm a tradeswoman. And I've had people be very afraid of what they could say around me. The trades just are not a politically correct place. And I'm a huge activist for many, many things, but I'm also an activist for whatever gets the job done, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody. So I've had people just kind of clam up when I walk in the room or start to tell a joke and then, oh, wait, I can't say that. So I guess they just sort of I feel like they feel that we are porcelain dolls meant to be kept in a box. And so that's the biggest thing that has probably hurt my feelings anyway, since I have started. That's a lot of the pushback, is that we are not delicate as we seem. And if we were delicate, we probably wouldn't choose this job. So that's a huge one. But you don't have anything to prove, ladies, either. You have nothing to prove. Carry that compressor up that ladder and walk away.
I love that. That's awesome. Uh, I guess one thing we've also heard, and from talking to a lot of companies, is women are on average better than men at, for example, customer service and quite a few other areas. Is that something that well, it's a broad question, and I know you haven't met other female technicians, but is that something that you've seen or you think uh, part of the
So
different
I've done a great deal of running the blogs, especially for HVA Chicks for you guys. I have done a lot of soul searching, and I've done a lot of other people's soul searching. And I think that, and I'm probably not PC for saying this, but I think that women and men hold very different superpowers. I think that men are very good at some things and women are very good at others. And there's a lot of things they're both really great at together. I think that the biggest thing is attention to detail is usually seen as a man's thing, but it isn't. Women are just as attentive and women are just as dedicated to that detail. So I think that as far as customer service, I think a lot of customers would rather deal with a woman. It's just a societal thing that is, it's just how it is. Whether they'd admit that or not, I'm not sure, but I think that they would rather deal with a woman because they feel either that they could push a woman around easier or they feel more comfortable with a woman. I think that both men and women are 100% able to give great customer service and customer interaction. But I also think that, yeah, it all boils down to women have things that they do better and men have things that they do better. And if we could get both of those things involved in a job, we would be unstoppable.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's what we've heard a lot about is, I mean, for sales, people generally often hire women, right? Women do the best. So yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think it's all about learning from each other. Everything is about learning from each other. If we could just get along long enough to learn something from each other, we'd be all be better off.
Yeah, 100%. Cool. Let me ask a couple more questions, and then I'll think we can open it up. I know a couple people have some thoughts and ideas on the chat. So broadly, a lot of the companies we talk to, are experiencing massive worker shortages. Like they can't hire anyone that they actually need to, and I think one of the big reasons they're leaving 50% of the population out of the market.
Yeah.
And you often get, oh, but a lot of women don't apply. Do you have any ideas or how we can attract, or how some of these companies could attract more women into trade jobs?
Sure, I absolutely do. That is it. That is the biggest part of it. The reason that I never thought I would be doing this job is not because I chose not to apply. That's because I didn't think I was able. I didn't think that I would have the opportunity. And I think a lot of other women just, it's not even on their radar. I mean, when they're looking for a job, they're looking at nursing or they're looking at, a convenience store or a sales job, or, they're not looking at a trade job because they think they're not welcome. So I guess what I think is that a lot of companies could probably change their advertising to include women. I don't think I've ever seen a company advertises, at least around here, using women in their pictures or in their videos. Invite women to apply is another huge thing. Most of the perks at most of these companies are geared toward men. So I think if you make it more inviting for everyone, that women will absolutely apply. The other thing is, a lot of women are under the guise that to work at an HVAC company, you need to have your license. That is not true. In order to be a service tech, you might, but not to be head service tech, I guess, because you're working with a refrigeration system in that case. But to, be a helper or a driver, or there are so many, a dispatch, there are so many jobs that people can do that do not require school. So I think if companies, HVAC companies, were to kind of put a little bit of light on that more so than they do now, I think a lot more people would apply, not just women. I actually put a couple of my friends through SkillCat that were working in the field without any certificates or licenses, and they got their EPA on SkillCat. And it's been a huge opener for them, but it didn't prevent them from getting a job in the first place. I think a lot of women would be more comfortable getting those licenses and going further if they were able to get the job, or knew they were able to get the job in the first place and learn while they're working. So I think that's a huge thing, is that it's just not inviting for us at this point.
You mentioned, you know, a lot of the perks are focused on men. Do you have any examples of benefits or perks that could be more focused on women to bring them into the trade as well?
Sure. So there are typically, these are going to be your typical perks for taking a job. You're going to get a sign-on bonus right now, not typically. You're going to get a sign-on bonus, but you're also going to get your benefits offered. It depends on how long you've been there usually, but you will be offered benefits. And then you have things like boot allowance, clothing allowance, cell phone. You will have either a tablet or an app on your cell phone that runs most of the ins and outs of your job. I actually, every quarter, my husband's company has a safety meeting, and they actually had one today. So this is very relevant for me. And during that safety meeting, if there have been no on-the-job injuries, they get a gift card. Those gift cards are for places like Cabela's, Bass Outfitters, Sports Authority, places like that.
Yeah.
There aren't any women in his company, but that may not be an incentive for some women. I mean, I'd love it. I live in Maine. I'm an outdoorsy person, but some women would not be geared toward that. That wouldn't be something that caught their eye or dragged them on. The other thing is like company outings. We've gone on plenty of baseball games. We've gone to, we had a cornhole competition that was mandatory once for a Christmas party. Things like that are not going to attract women. I mean, maybe putting out more choices, like choose your own perks from this list kind of deal. But not even just that, like the boot allowance. It says in my husband's company policy, and I was reading this for a blog that I'm writing this week. In the company policy, it says for sizes 11 and up, this is how much we offer. No woman is going to be an 11 or up. Just tiny little things like that they're not thinking of, and it's not a malicious intent. It's just something that no woman is going to look at and be like, ooh, I should work here.
Yeah.
And also the wage gap is a huge thing that we need to address. I have experienced it. A lot of women have experienced it in other jobs and in other trades. It is not okay to offer a woman who can do the exact same job as a man far less money. I was offered almost twice less what I was offered at another place at one place because I was a woman. It is legal. Okay, I get it, but it's not going to get you workers. So I guess that would be, if a company were to advertise, we will pay you the same as we pay our men, a lot of women would probably flock to that company.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess continuing along that line, so I mean, let's say you have women working at your company, and for some of the folks at some of these other companies, like the one you worked at, what can, and after you attract someone to the company, what can companies do to foster a culture where women are treated more equally and given the same opportunities, and really a lot of the strengths are leveraged in the most optimal way? What can, I guess two parts to it, what can companies do? And then also what can, individual male technicians do to help foster that culture?
Absolutely. I guess I'll start with companies. Many companies, I'm finding in my research for the blog, that many companies do not offer out-of-town work, travel work to women. And that's whether they're a parent or not. That has nothing to do with their family life. It has to do with their gender. And it is based on age-old statistics that do not have any bearing anymore. It isn't something that's talked about. It is not something that's admitted by most companies, but there's evidence of it within those companies that are then saying to the press, no, that's not something we did. It is. I guess companies could offer the same opportunities to women. Advancement is another huge one. Advancement typically, I know I have a woman that's a carpenter that I've been working with a lot, and she's been in the trade for 14 years. She has had times where she was not offered big jobs because the men who maybe, like the GC, the general contractor on the job, maybe was a gruffer man. And her company didn't want to expose her to that. I would say instead of removing the opportunity for her, put security in place for her. It is something that a lot of companies just don't want to deal with. So in order to not deal with it, the woman doesn't get the opportunity, and then therefore they're not put in harm's way. That is not a way that we are going to change and think forward in this issue. We cannot protect people from everything by separating them from it. We need to teach. Companies also should have, trainings on how to specifically not treat women that way, how to specifically not assume that a woman is not capable of taking care of herself. Fear is so huge. I guess education is the only thing that combats fear. And that's a direct quote from somebody super famous. I just can't remember who. And education is something that every company should be offering to all of its employees from every branch of their, company. However high up you are in the company, you should be offered education as to how to not be afraid that you are going to say the wrong thing. If you know what things are the wrong thing, you won't say them. If you know what things are the wrong thing, you won't do them. I think that companies are afraid of that. I think they're afraid to offer that education because the education itself may be seen as, offensive. I think a lot of giant companies that have multi-million dollars need to stop being so afraid of cancel culture, because that is the biggest thing that I'm seeing right now, is that they're so scared they're going to be canceled, or that someone is going to post a negative, Facebook post on their company site. Stand up for what you believe in rather than worrying so much about being canceled, I guess would be my biggest thing for companies. Individually, I have had so many men, and I know that they haven't been highlighted in this webinar because we have limited time, but I really want to stress the fact that I have a million guy friends in these trades that are incredible men who have never judged me, who have actually encouraged me probably more than my female counterparts, because my female friends are worried for me. They're genuinely afraid for me. My guy friends are like, you can do it. And when I carried that compressor up that ladder, it was a hoot and holler, party after. Nobody was disappointed about that. I would say that is the biggest thing that has helped me, is that there are so many men that are willing to celebrate my victories, even no matter how tiny they are, rather than trying to put more obstacles in my way to slip me up because, I've gotten this far, maybe I won't get past this one. I would say for men, remember how you feel when you're with your friends who are girls and you're at a campfire or you're at a party or you're bowling, and treat these women how you would treat those women, because they really are no different. We're all human, and this woman is just trying to make a living the way you are.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Very cool. I guess I'll open it up. Anyone else has any questions? I know we only have 9 people watching, still watching right now, but we have 250 people who showed interest, and I think a lot of them want the video after the call. So excited to share that. I'll wait for more questions. In the meantime, I guess, Jennifer, you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing, and you're doing with us at SkillCat to help bring more women and through your blogs and through some of the social media ideas, vlogging, and through this webinar series.
Yeah. So SkillCat had this incredible idea to have a women's ambassador. So that is what I'm trying to do here. I do some work with other women in other jobs where I do some career training and just some self-worth training, things like that. So I'm trying to carry that over to an online platform, which has proved challenging, but I think we're getting it now. I have done every course in SkillCat because it's fun for me. It's challenging. It's everything that I can learn. And now that I'm working in the field, I'm realizing that I learned so much more than I ever could have imagined from SkillCat. So I'm just continuing to do the courses as they come out, things like that. So yeah, I am hoping that it being not, and I said this in my video last time too, I'm hoping that it not being the spotlights on you being the only woman in the class sitting in a classroom that's full of men. I'm hoping that alone will draw a lot more women in. And when I do help my friends sign up, or girls that I meet that want to sign up, I explain that to them. This is a way that you can do it, and you don't have nobody's eyes are on you. you're doing what you can do, you're learning what you can learn. And when you come out of this and you are in that situation where you're around a bunch of guys, you'll have that knowledge to combat those looks and those stares. I'm hoping that is going to be a huge, huge help for getting women into it. And it's proved that it already is. 30% of 10,000 being women is incredible. That I never could have imagined that until you told me. And then also the ability to do it on your own time, huge, huge. I have 5 kids. I have, 4 of them are teenagers. So time was a constraint that I just could not scour on. I had to do what I had to do. So being able to come home after, this one's dance practice and do a couple of modules, finish a quiz, then come back at night and finish it up and do the final exam. Like, it makes you feel like in all of that selflessness that you're doing either for work or family or whatever you're doing, you have that I did this for me thing going on as well. So I'm hoping to just shed light on that so that other women will know that that's what this sort of program is, and that it's different from other online schools, and it's different from being in the classroom. There is no spotlight. It's just your own, whatever you put on yourself, that's what you do. So that's my goal, is to use SkillCat's platform that they already have and get some women in here making some money.
Awesome. That's really great, Jennifer. Thank you so much. Any other questions? Anyone? Feel free to add them in the chat. But I really appreciate you coming on this platform, and we're excited for the webinar series for the next, every month for the next couple of years. I don't know, for the foreseeable future, bringing in women who you can interview, folks who have really made an impact in the trades, who have done a lot. And
yes, and I've actually reached out to a few really prominent women in trades from YouTube. I've gotten a couple of responses. I don't want to spoil anything yet until I know for sure, but I have a feeling that the next couple of webinars are going to be a hoot. And I didn't even touch on the second half of your question. I'm sorry, Ruchir. I'm also going to be running some social media pages where I will be checking in daily with little video clips and vlogs and just kind of, intercepts about my day for those who are interested. Some great stuff happens to me on a daily basis being a woman in this trade. None of what I've said here did I want to discourage anyone from getting into this trade. It is challenging, but it can be done. And when it is done, it is fun. It's enlightening. It gives you power. It is wonderful. So I would just like to show you guys that side of it as well. So when we get those social media pages up and running, feel free to join and really see what it's like, because I think that you will be a lot more apt to try it yourself if you do.
Awesome. Well, that's really great. It's been a really great 45 minutes. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thanks, guys. Of course.
Okay, awesome. Well, everyone have a great rest of your day.
You too, Richard. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, bye.